One more day. We are one day away from our local gaming stores getting into the Inklands finally released. So instead of doing a gameplay and deck profile video today, we are going to go ahead and do a tier list. I have 20 decks here. If your deck is not on here, let me know down below and I will give you my thoughts on it. One, I did realize I didn't cover on here, Dalmatian. I think it's casual to maybe low rogue. To me, tier 1 are decks that you expect to be in top cuts of events of all sizes. Tier 2 are events that absolutely win locals, and you're not too surprised if they do well at a big event. They're just not doing it as consistently as tier 1. Rogue decks are decks that on the right day, they may take down a big event or top at least, but they also can regularly win your local store championships. Without further ado, we're going to start this out with the best deck of last format, and where is Ruby Amethyst Control going to be? I did not square up my picture, so a lot of my words got cut off. That's a little unfortunate. Ruby Amethyst Control, though, until something else happens and proves it, they're a tier 1 deck. I want to see them fall off before I write them off. One of the best counters to them from last format. Where are we going to put? Are they still going to be right on the heels of it to chase it down? I don't think so. I think that there's other strategies that are going to combat this deck, and people are going to go away from this. Kind of like how Emerald was the weak color last format, I think Sapphire is that color this format. They may have got some neat new tools, but I think the other colors advance themselves further into this format, and Emerald is actually very intriguing to me, and I think it's an incredible support engine in just about every color. Mufasa Roulette, the Amber Ruby builds. Where do I want this one? I'm going to put them probably back end of tier 2. They earned their spot in tier 2, so I don't want to drop them down just yet, but I could see them going down or holding that spot as back end of tier 2. I don't think they're going to climb up tier 2 very far, but again, they might hold on to it instead of falling down to Rogue. Tiana Aggro, whether it is Amber or Amethyst, both colors can play this pretty well. I think moving forward, Amethyst might be the, Amber might be the better one, because Bare Necessities is one of the cards of the format that is absolutely going to shape the meta, along with things like both Ursulas, Morph, and, you guessed it, Jafar. Speaking of Jafar, I think this deck is going to absolutely be a tier 1 deck. I think it's overhyped a little bit, I will say that. Being said, I think that it's still a very, very strong and consistent deck that can win out of nowhere late into the game. Being able to shift makes it a turn 5 play, where some other decks go a little bit further, just to get 7 lore. And at that point too, you can sing it, and then if you hard play one, you could potentially get 14 lore out of nowhere. Definitely keep in mind and watch out for this deck. It does have other playlines as well. It's not solely a whole new world or bust. Otherwise, I would put it in tier 2. However, the deck does still have the powerful Amethyst engine and Steel, which both of these decks can do very well on their own and with other cards. So naturally, together, they work very, very well. Ruby Amethyst Aggro, we saw it pop up as a deck to combat the blue steel. We saw the control builds get a little more aggressive. I'm going to bump this one down. I do think that we're going to see less of it. I think that control builds are going to once again run rampant. I think Ruby Amethyst Aggro, I don't want to drop it down too far, but we're going to put it into the middle of tier 2, at least for right now. Weight Set, one of our Ruby Steel decks. I think that it's an interesting deck. I've never been huge on it, but I've seen good players do really well with this deck. So I think this is one of those decks that really comes down to the player playing it. And for that reason, we are going to go ahead and put it in Rogue. But again, with the right player on the right day, I would not be surprised to see this deck do well at a big event. And at your locals, absolutely this deck can wreck. Bounce Control. This is Emerald Amethyst. I just put a profile up for this. Personally, I think this is the deck I'm going to play this format. It is so much fun to play. You can outpace aggro decks. You can grind it out with the best of the grindy decks. And the deck's resource management and draw power is insane. I think the top end of it is a little weaker than Ruby Amethyst. However, I think it's more consistent, it can be quicker, and it manages its resources better than Ruby Amethyst. And for that reason, I think that Amethyst Emerald could potentially be one of the best tier 1 decks, whether people want to admit it or not. This deck is going to surprise people this format. Green Steel discard. Oh man. Are they going to update with the format, or are they going to keep playing things like the Bucky and Floodborns? I think this is a tough one. I've never been a huge fan of this deck. You guys kind of know that already. I'm going to put them also in the back end of tier 2 because I'm going to hold faith in you guys that you're going to play the deck, I guess, a little more ideally. With the Ursula engine and things like that and better steel cards moving forward, Bucky needs to go. Bucky's not going to be good. The Flynn Rider package needs to go. It's not what's going to win you games. Prince John can stay for draw if you need him, but you got Beast. You got the new 2-drop song that if Ursula sings it especially, you can end up drawing 4. Yeah, I don't think that playing this with Bucky and the Floodborns, I'd put it as a mid-rogue deck. If it's updated and played properly, I think it can be a strong tier 2 deck. Amethyst Emerald aggro. Being able to take advantage of the Ursula really is going to help with the steel matchups and get rid of songs. If you don't win early, you can also hit Be Prepared, and you can bounce her to continually use her. Where do I put it? It's definitely no Ruby Amethyst aggro, but I'm going to put it above Tiana aggro. I'd played Tiana aggro for a bit last format, and I kind of felt underwhelmed by it. It's really nice when everything works, but if everything doesn't work, it just falls flat. I'm going to skip over Beast OTK for right now. We're going to go on an aggro kick here. Purple Steel aggro. So where do we want to put Purple Steel aggro? You have bodyguards, which you don't in the Emerald build. You kind of have the same purple engine that you can run and probably will. So does the removal and bodyguards outweigh the potential song counter cards? It's pretty much hand in hand here. All 3 of these aggro decks I think are so close that they're all very good rogue decks, but I don't see any of them moving on up into the tiered status. Shift Control, this is primarily going to be Steel Emerald, but you can pair up Emerald and Morph with whatever you want. I just think Steel has the best shift targets. I did do a deck profile on this if you want to check it out on the channel. I think it's a deck that really needs a lot more refining, so I'm going to put it at the top of Rogue, but between myself and you guys, let's work on it. Let's break this deck. I could absolutely see it being a tier 2 strategy. Location Pirates. This is kind of another Ruby Steel deck. I think Weight Set might see less play because those players may transition into this. You essentially take advantage of the locations by playing a bunch of them and Jim Hawkins and the passive lore that you gain. And you protect them by all of the powerful removal cards of your Steel. The pirate cards being things too, like the Captain Hook is very strong. I always want to say Long John Silver, the John Silver from Steel, where he's going to start gaining resist for each location and more lore to be able to quest and become very hard to deal with. I think this deck is a very, very good rogue deck. I think it's going to lack representation, and that's what's going to keep it out of tiered status. If it had more representation, more people behind it, I could see it pushing up higher. But because of representation, I'm going to put this as a very good rogue strategy. Amber Amethyst Hyper Aggro, the deck that really just outpaced, I should say, other decks last format. Well, they got Bare Necessities and Chernobog now. The Pluto playline also is very intriguing to me. However, I've played against this deck in testing with like 6 different decks, and every time it just felt like I was never behind. I'm going to put them as a very good rogue deck, and again, I think it needs some figuring out because they got so many new tools. It's a matter of which ones do you end up playing. Obviously, Bare Necessities is going to be one to help combat those songs. However, it doesn't take advantage of it like another deck that we'll talk about in a little bit. Popsicle Patrol. you know, 'cause that's what we say around here. I literally just scratched a video because my internet like completely froze and everything broke down on me. And I was making Popsicle Patrol jokes because last time we did this, it just comes off like Paw Patrol. I just can't help but say Popsicle Patrol. Popsicle Control. I'm going to put this in the rogue strategies. The right player I've seen do really, really well with this deck. But most players do not. I think it's I don't know. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it. Again, the right player can absolutely do really good with any of these decks in Rogue. So I'm not trying to bash on them because a big part of that can be the player, the day, the matchups, how things fall, your opening hands, your opponent's opening hands. Every deck listed here can do very good. We just have to rank some above others, right? That's how this game works. Amber Emerald, Hyper Aggro, and then we'll stop skipping over the Beast. Amber Emerald, Hyper Aggro. I'd say at this point we might just leave Beast for the end. I think this is the best aggro deck of the format, and that's because of Ursula. It's because of Bare Necessities. It's because of things like that where you can just spam out so many high questers early. You have bodyguards from Amber. You got a new 3 and 4 drop bodyguards. You got the Pluto package for early bodyguards. You got Chernobog for late game, just absolute monsters. You have Emerald, like I said, for going after your opponent's hand if they're more of a lengthy deck. Not that I would commit too much to the discard strategy, but Ursula, Bare Necessities, you can even have Bounce in here to help and get that Ursula back into your hand. Personally, if you play like 4 Bare Necessities, 4 Ursula, 2 Bounce, that's 10 ways. I mean, because, you know, you bounce your Ursula back. So 8 to 10, pseudo 10 ways to hit things like Grab Your Swords and these other powerful songs that normally shut down aggro. I think this deck just has so many ways to combat it, and it can be so fast and outpace your opponent. Steel Song. We got a few new songs. Steel got some new shifts. Reluctantly, where do I put this deck? Are they for the third format going to be a tier 1? Oh, man. They were supposed to be. But last minute, I'm going to put them tier 2. Top of tier 2. I want to see them earn it back. Ruby Amethyst Control. You know, I didn't want to drop yet until it happens. Steel Song, I feel like they were already borderline tier 1, tier 2 last format. So I'm going to have to lower them. I think they're going to see a little less play. The new songs are definitely impactful, very good. They got Bare Necessities. I'm going to say it a bunch because it's a format-changing card. Steel Song, I had it as tier 1 on my list and in all of my preparations, but I'm going against that. I'm going to, like I said, put it at the bottom of the very top of tier 2. I could see it going back to tier 1 and maybe even being the best deck, but I could also see it staying tier 2. Do we put it back? Oh, man. I said my thoughts on it. You can put it where you want. Tier 1 or top of tier 2. That's it. That's the end of it. Green Fossa. Well, kind of like Mufasa Roulette. I want to see it. They earn their spot in tier 2. I want to see them fall off before I make them fall off. That's, again, pretty much the same between these two decks. Amber Emerald Discard. I think this is the best discard deck of the format. I'm going to put it above Green Steel Discard. And I'm going to go as far to put it ahead of Blue Steel as well. This deck is taking advantage of things like Cinderella for singing songs. You play your Prince John as draw package. You have the 2-drop green card to draw as well. You have Bare Necessities and Sudden Chill for early discards. You don't need to play things like Hypnotize, but you can because you can always get a draw off of it. But I did a deck profile for this one with replays as well, so go check that out. I got a bunch of deck profiles. Go check the whole channel out while you're at it. You Have Forgotten Me and Hypnotize, I think, are completely optional. Amber Emerald Discard and those 2 cards are optional, right? Sounds weird. I get it. However, the fact that you have to hard cast them makes me not like them as much, and I cut them and I didn't look back. I don't mind it at all. I think between your character discards and your song discards, you can just keep pace and tempo much better than if you are hard casting these other cards. Especially because once they know you're on discard, they just dump their hand, and then you end up with worse cards left over. So the deck, strategy, we've been skipping over Beast OTK. So essentially, turn 6, you play your Beast Relentless. Turn 7, you play your Bayou for 1. You play your Sheriff of Nottingham as 4, so that's 5. We know you have at least 6 because you played your Beast already. So with that 1 remaining, you can go ahead and move your Beast to Bayou. You then quest with Beast, gain 2 lore. You draw a card, you discard a card. Sheriff of Nottingham then deals a damage. Your Beast readies. You repeat the process until you win. It's a turn 7 play, so odds are you have some lore already. If you don't, however, your opponent just needs to be able to take 9 damage because you'll quest for the 2, so you need 18 more. You need to ready 9 more times, so deal 9 damage, ready 9 more times, and you can do 20 damage or 20 lore in one single turn by just looping these 3 cards. And it's a very effective strategy, but it's a turn 7 strategy. I think that this deck is going to need to adapt and evolve. You play those cards, like your 4 Beast, your 4 Bayou, your 4 Sheriffs, and the rest of your deck, you got to figure out the best way to play it, where if you don't pull off the Beast OTK, this deck has to be able to support itself and play well. I've played the deck, and I've played against the deck. I think it's very strong, and when it goes right, it is borderline unstoppable. However, the right time and holding your cards can be detrimental to it. So I do want to put it as tier 2, kind of like Steel Song. These 2 decks I can absolutely see being tier 1, but for now they're going to stay down at tier 2 because I want to see it. Because call me a skeptic, say it's clickbait, say I need you guys to talk down below, something. I don't care. I'm going to put them both as tier 2. I think that Ruby Amethyst Control, Jafar's New World, and Amethyst Emerald Bounce Control, I think are the 3 best decks of the format. I truly think that. I think Steel Song and Beast OTK are number 4 and 5, either or, doesn't matter which way you want to flip them. But are they good enough to be in tier 1, or is there a gap from those other 3 decks? For right now, I'm going to say that they're closer to the Amber Emerald Discard or Hyper Aggro than they are to the other 3. I might be wrong, and I will admit that. But let me know what your thoughts are down below. What deck are you playing this format? I'm playing Amethyst Emerald Bounce Control. The deck is so much fun. Again, profile replays on the channel. Go check it out. Thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.